we going, guys? Mick here, not Cartel. Going to do a review of one of the Braggot's homebrew. This one is the Boozy Hive Meadery Braggot. Original gravity is 1060, final gravity 1009, around about 6.8%. IBUs very low for this one at around about 8 IBUs. EBC 7.8. So those figures have changed slightly over the course of the brew. Obviously, the program here we're using is not actually calculating the honey addition because of when it's been put in. So it's sort of a detachment to the original recipe. So it's only 3 kilos of ale malt, 1 kilo of Pilsner 2-row, no wheat, no nothing. It's very simple sort of Braggot recipe. This is to get to know what additions, particularly hop additions, and play around with what grains I think are going to work well, particularly with the honey. So we could use a honey malt as well, or some sort of caramel malt. Maybe could have contributed to the flavour a little bit more. Tastings of what was coming from the fermenter tasted not too bad. So the original plan was 5 grams of Chinook at 60 minutes. That is basically 7.2% of the IBUs. Strata at 5 grams, 10 minutes, 80-degree hop stand. That brings us up to the 0.8% or 0.8 IBUs. It brings us up to the total of 8. 12 grams of Eureka at day 3. Bearing in mind that this Braggot actually went on to about 6 grams of Framgarden Kviek yeast. Mash water 26 litres, sparge water 5.2 litres, a total water volume of 31.2 litres over the course of that process. We did the standard mash step at 65 for 60 minutes and then mashed out at 75 for 10 minutes. That seems to be pretty much the norm for the mash series there. Fermentation, we did our best to keep it at 25. It gained its own temperature and obviously generated its own heat and didn't exceed anything over 28.5. Got a little bit warm here in the shed. 29 may have been conflicting throughout that process, throughout the day. Not a huge variant there. Sort of half a degree, if anything. But it's showing me pretty much for the entire fermentation that it just acted on its own warmth, temperature, particularly overnight. It didn't change at all. It didn't drop. It sort of sat pretty happy with a towel around it at 28 to 28.5. Sat a little bit longer on that yeast and so forth for the dry hop than what I planned. I didn't get around to putting it into the into cold crash for probably another 2 days once it completed. So we may have some slight off flavours coming from that. But being the Kviek yeast, not supposed to give a lot of off flavours regardless of your fermentation steps and so forth. So we'll see how that goes. We'll pour it up, give you a look at what it's like in the glass. Still playing around with the carbonation at the moment. So it's probably got another day or two at the PSI or pressure it's sitting on. It's a little bit full, so I can hold it up. Alright, so it's going to be hazy. Naturally, we're getting the haze coming from pretty much the yeast. It may drop out as it sits a bit longer, but it has been cold crashing for around about three and a half days thereabouts, and certainly it is a lot boozier than what we're being told through the notes, which was once again 6.8. We probably ended up with around about 7.6 if I calculate that addition of honey. So in saying that, there is probably a little bit too much hops going into this, considering it's a very light recipe. The hops have sort of dominated the flavour a little bit. The honey's certainly there. The malt profile's definitely there, but I think we need to work better on the hop additions. So we're going to get obviously that piney sort of flavour and aromas coming from the Chinook. But they're not huge hop additions. Once again, I think the fermenter that we're using is tainted with what was in it previously before I picked them up, which was they were used for syrup, and I believe the syrup was part of what they were using for like a community cooking class or something like that. So they were bulk storing some sort of syrup, or I think it may have even been from a food fan of some sort. Was told that they were 100% used with human consumable products. So anyway, so this one that I'm using had a syrup in it called cookies and cream. So I'm thinking a lot of that's sort of flavour still coming out of the plastic. So we're going to throw them ones out. I do have 3 of them. The other one had vanilla or something in it. This is the only one that seems to be tainting what goes into it. After doing that 3rd time round, you thought I would have learnt, but definitely I'm not putting any more fermentation through those barrels. We might just convert them to something else. Good for dog biscuits, so forth. Colour's where I want it to be. Flavour a little bit. It may mellow out, may settle, but we'll see how we go. $700 grams went into the boil, and then a further 2.1 kilos of honey into the cube. This one was added. Sorry, the honey from this one was added to the fermenter, and then the cube poured on top. So only 700 grams of heat went through the entire amount of honey that went in. It's certainly a recipe to work on, something I'm not going to give up on, and I'll keep going. Cheers. The other braggot is put down yesterday from the cube into the fermenter. It's bubbling away quite happily. It's on Fram Garden as well, and we'll see how we go with that. Hopefully we get a better flavour profile. This is the one that we added all the honey at the end of the boil, so it's had basically strike heat of around about 80 degrees directly straight up. It's flavour profile is certainly tastes a lot better on this one than it does with the one that we didn't add heat to. Cheers.